National Security and Surveillance, Balancing Security and Privacy by Nolan Fry. Era of Continuous Surveillance. National security as well as individual privacy rights regarding the worries of terrorism. These are the big three, and it's important to find a balance between them. Starting off with forms of surveillance. Government surveillance programs such as the NSA, as well as TSA, and even some aspects of the CIA are all government surveillance programs. Corporate surveillance programs, the big one is Axiom, which is a major one, and this company has grossed over $350 billion in 2018 according to their website. And then surveillance technologies such as facial recognition software, fingerprints, and even some countries are doing microchips in their own citizens. Now, security versus privacy. It's important to find a balance between these two. That's what I'll be talking about. Arguments for surveillance is to create a safety net for the U.S. citizens or citizens in general to protect them from terrorist attacks, terrorists, and even cyber attacks as well. And arguments for privacy, big one is protecting our constitutional rights as citizens and protecting our right to privacy. A case study I did was the United States. In the wake of September 11th, the Patriot Act was passed, and this gave government more control over our data. It infringed upon our privacy more and extort numbers, and it allowed them to peek into our privacy and then peek into what we are doing. And then Edward Snowden, who's an ex-NSA member, he leaked a ton of data from the NSA about how they were tapping U.S. citizens' phones, U.S. officials' phones, as well as even foreign officials. Now, this created a ton of legal and ethical implications. It also showcased the mistrust and the abuse of power in the government, as the citizens, without Edward Snowden leaking this information, would have never known this is going on, and it just shows the abuse of power within our own government, and that they will and can lie to us. And the American citizens' trust in the government. And this chart is from Pew Research Center. As you can see, it's been a steady decline over the last 50 years, 60 years. As you can see, this is around 2001, so when 9/11 occurred. You see the spike in the trust of government because the citizens were scared after a terrorist attack, and they wanted to trust the government to protect them. So you can see that little increase, as well as peace. Peace for the last 10, 15, 20 years slowly started, and then you can see them start to mistrust the government again. Attitude towards surveillance in the United States. Now, according to this chart, again by Pew Research Center, we can see there's a ton of diverse view on surveillance. Starting with the top, you can see poorly performing schools sharing student data with nonprofit seeking to improve educational outcomes. Majority of U.S. adults say that's acceptable. Now, on the other hand, you can see smart speaker makers sharing users' audio recordings with law enforcement to help criminal investigations. Now, the big thing to take away is that adults are not okay with them invading their own home, like for example a smart speaker in their own home. But they are okay sharing data and privacy in order to improve educational outcomes. In conclusion, now key findings were that there are little to no explicit laws stating what can and can't be done by the government in terms of privacy with the web. And then another finding that I found was that the government has lied to the U.S. citizens before about what data they've leaked or what data they've intruded upon and used. And then recommendations for policy and practice. I think there needs to be clear-cut, explicit laws with no room for interpretation by the government. And I think there needs to be some sort of higher-up committee that can overlook these policies, and then call to action. I think the media needs to cover these a lot more. I think Edward Snowden's a great example of someone who leaked information and spread awareness of the topic. I think the media needs to cover intrusions upon privacy rights and constitutional rights. And then sources I use